Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nick the Brave Chemo Kitties and Canines podcast. I'm your host, Nick the Brave. As someone battling cancer, I know how important it is to stay positive in the rough times. This is the only podcast that looks at the heroes behind the scene who help people that need it the most. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nick the Brave Chemo Kitties and Canines podcast. I'm your host, Nick the Brave. Today, I have a couple guests on my podcast, and I've listened to this talk show for 8 years. And you might not think 13-year-old would talk radio, but they're funny, sometimes serious, and always positive. And I want everybody listening to know all about you guys. So you guys talk about yourselves for a second, and then we can get on with the questions.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us. We are so excited to be on your podcast.
Yeah.
We're very, very happy to be here. And so do you want to hear about how sometimes we choose our stories that we talk about on the show?
Sure. You can talk about anything, but just tell you why you do this.
Yeah.
Do whatever you try to do. And
yeah. So I come in and I read a lot at night. I read a lot online and I read articles and things that I find interesting. And sometimes the stories are about animals and sometimes the stories are about hospitals and sometimes the stories are about cars. And I find things I think are interesting. And then Scott, when he's at home, does the same thing. And then the next day we come in and we throw all of those stories in a big pile. And then we decide right at the beginning of the show what we're going to talk about.
Then he has to say something.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to say something now? I would concur with what Dana said. I think in talk radio, a lot gets played into preparation. I think people would be shocked, young man, how little preparation actually goes into the show. But I would argue that's a good thing because it keeps the show spontaneous, it keeps it natural, and there's not what I call overthinking that goes into the show. It's just what it is. I mean, it's just a show.
Okay. My first question is about helping others. And how do you help others doing this job?
Well, we help others because sometimes people are having a bad day and they're in their car and maybe they had a bad day at work or they're having a bad day at home or there's stuff going on in their personal life. And so we try to be informative and let people know kind of what's going on in the world. But sometimes funny stories come up and we try to make people laugh. And in most cases, people are in their cars 20 minutes or 30 minutes. If we can just give them a distraction that makes them happy, then that makes us happy.
I would make the addition to that. Dana and I think this is fair to say, actually care about the people that listen to the show. It's very easy when you're in the radio business to not really see nor care about much the people that you're broadcasting to on a daily basis. I actually adore the people that listen to this show. We do some charity events. We have a bowling bash every year that we do out in Western Shawnee. And I just think you have to understand who the boss really is, who really is in charge of your show. And you have to take, I would argue, a genuine interest in those people and understand that you're no better than them, you're no worse than them, but you're no better than they are. They want, as Dana was explaining, they just want to go home. They get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They have 20 minutes, and they've got to get Susie to soccer and they've got to get Tom to baseball. And we get 20 minutes of their time to either make them think or make them laugh. But if we can make them think and laugh, then we've really done our job.
How did you get on the positivity track? Like, how are you so positive? Why are you so positive and not negative?
Well, I, as you know, did television for 17 years before I did radio, and there's a lot of bad news in the world and a lot of really depressing news in the world. And so sometimes on our show, we do have to talk about those things when bad things happen in the community, but we always try to include positive stories too, because, if someone's out there listening having a bad day, they don't always want to be reminded that, there's a flu going on globally, or that the economy's in the tank, or we're losing jobs, that tends to be depressing. And so we don't shy away from those topics that are important, but if we can throw in some stories to make people laugh, we both prefer to do that.
Okay, next question. You're very honest about the text line. How do you deal with people that are not they're negative? Mm-hmm. People are mean.
Yeah, so I just stopped reading it. I don't go on there anymore.
I do, so I'll address that one. How do you deal with the text line? That's a good question, young man. Actually, it hurts sometimes, I'll be honest, to hear people say things about you that you don't like. It's painful to be told that you're dumb or
show sucks.
Yeah, your show sucks. I mean, that stinks, but...
It doesn't suck.
Thank you. I like to think so, too. But it's their opinion. Every time I read something like that, when I read that people are saying, your show sucks or you suck or whatever, there's a part of me, I think, that wants to lash out, that wants to defend myself. And then there's a part of me that says, I don't know what kind of day they had. Why is this person that mad? And usually that's, unless they're just being a complete jerk, that's usually the reaction I try to maintain is, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. I don't know what happened to you today, but you're obviously having a bad day. Like I told, when Dana and I first started together 8 years ago, the last thing that I said to her before we went on the air for the first time was I leaned across the desk and I said, grow thick skin. And I don't know that she understood that at the time, but she certainly understands it now. It took me a while to do that too, because I did the show for 6 years before Dana joined us. It was hard in the beginning to hear that people didn't like me and that I wasn't everybody's favorite person. But in time, I just grew to accept the fact that some people are just mad. Some people are just angry. And it's not my job to make them happy. I can try to make them laugh, I can try to make them laugh, but it's not my job to change their life. I have to grow thick skin and accept that people are just the way that they are.
You guys get a lot of people who say, Mom hates that. Yeah.
That's a good lesson.
Sorry, Scott, but
It's okay.
they always say no. And she gets pointed out anytime.
You know why? Because people get really nervous when they're going on the radio. They think they're going to say something wrong or they're going to say something that doesn't make sense. So I think when people say things like, you know what I'm saying? It's because they're trying to buy some time because they don't quite know what they want to say or how to say it. They're nervous.
Okay. Can you tell me your goal and radio show for Kansas City? What do you want to tell Kansas City about, or wherever in Missouri? What do you want the ending to be? Long-term goal to be?
Well, I just hope people keep listening to our silly little show that has grown and grown and grown. And I hope that we can continue to entertain people and inform people. And if they're having a bad day, make them smile every once in a while. And it's really a privilege to do that. We have a lot of fun at our job. It's a lot of fun. And if we can, just reach one person and maybe make them think or make them smile, that makes me very happy.
Last question.
Well, hey, I want to weigh in on that too, Captain.
Oh, sorry.
Easy, killer. I wake up every day, honest to God, this is the truth. I wake up every day and I don't know how I ended up here. I don't know how I got so lucky. And this is all I ever wanted to do from the day that I was 11 years old. I told my dad, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I wanted to be on the radio. And he told me, well, if that's what you want to do, then just go do it and don't let anybody stop you. And I set about doing that. But along the way, I learned a couple of things, maybe more than a couple. A, I'm blessed. And B, life is not as serious as a lot of people think it is. Life is supposed to be enjoyed. I don't know if you have 50 years or you have 80 years or you have 1 year, enjoy the life that you've been given. And it's taken me a long time to figure that out and to understand that life is fun and life can be painful. Life can be joyful. but life is fun. And if Dana and I can bring just a little bit of fun into somebody's life, you know, a lot of people work jobs that they don't like. That's just the fact of life. It's just the way it is. And a lot of people work jobs that they just don't like. But if they can get into their car and for 20 minutes, and I really do believe that this is what the show is all about, if for 20 minutes they can get into their car and just forget about how much they don't like their boss or how much they don't like their job or all the things they've got to do this tonight or this weekend, if we can just give them 20 minutes where they say, you know what, ha, that was funny, or ha, that was interesting, then I think we've done our job. That's what I think.
So, thank you for being on my podcast, but this is the last question. Who is someone positive to be on my podcast next?
Someone positive to be on your podcast next. Well, I think the best people are the people all around us every single day. So not the famous people like the Chiefs players, although they're pretty great, but people who have positively influenced your life, people who work with children, people who have dedicated their lives to public service. So teachers, you could interview a firefighter, you could interview a police officer. They would be so happy to do that. Those folks who live and work and do their jobs in our community every single day, I think those are really positive people that would be great for you to interview.
I'm actually going to give you a name. Mission Police Chief Ben Hadley. I think he is one of the most positive, inspiring, uplifting human beings I've ever met in my entire life. I adore him. I respect him. He, too, has battled cancer. And I think Chief Ben Hadley would probably be an incredible interview for you. And I think not only could you teach him a thing or two, but I think he could teach you a thing or two. Chief Ben Hadley would be my recommendation.
Thank you for having us on your podcast. You did great.
Yeah, I did.
You did? You did great.
You did too.
This was so good.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.